Okay, we're live. How are you?
Fantastic. Thank you very much for the invite. Once again, I think the last one was a couple of months ago, right? In the summer.
Yeah. Was it that long ago?
Yeah, it was about 6 months ago. I was in southern Spain, and you were where are you at right now?
Yeah. Well, and then you were just telling me there's an accident right outside your window, so we're going to do our best. Maybe some
Yeah.
ambulances.
Yeah, I believe nobody's hurt, so should be okay. Yeah.
That's good. So we're going to talk about some AI apps. Before we get into that, why don't you tell us about some of the work that you've been doing in hotels, where you're literally going in and you're doing a review or an audit to identify gaps where these AI-enabled applications could help.
Yeah. Well, we've been doing a lot of assessments, is what we call them, in various hotel groups, very large groups, also smaller boutique hotels with under 10 hotels in the portfolio. We've been doing specifically artificial intelligence assessments for their operations. That's what I specialize in, so to say. So I go in there in those hotels remotely, right? We begin this, for example, with a survey to just identify all their systems, what they're currently using. And some of them, to their own surprise, they're already using artificial intelligence, right?
Yeah.
Right. We just want to identify all those systems and also some operational gaps of where AI could be, the most impactful, so to say. After that, we conduct some interviews. Usually it's not the entire portfolio of hotels, of all their properties. We pick out maybe 20-25%, and also usually they have cluster operational managers or cluster sales and marketing or cluster rooms division managers or something along those lines. So we don't have to interview all the staff, right? We just pick and choose, so to say. We go into quite deep interviews of about an hour with each individual, and we really dive into their department. So let's say you have a rooms division director. We really go into their challenges on a day-to-day basis, and how they're currently addressing, for example, making schedules or replying to guest reviews or analyzing certain KPIs, right? And that's where we go into the property, again on a remote level with virtual interviews. After that, we usually sit down again with the leadership. That could be a GM, could be an IT director of the group, and we discuss our findings. We present it. That's what we've been doing for about a year now, I think. A little shorter than a year, and so far it's been a grand success. We've seen a lot of successful implementations of artificial intelligence. And we're also apart from specifically focusing on AI, we recently also launched more of a broader technology assessment. But we'll talk about that another time, I suppose.
So what has been the biggest area of need when you do these assessments?
I think the biggest area, what we've seen, is really back office systems, right? Back office systems and also processes. And I just touched upon it a little bit. For example, creating schedules. I just came out of an audit of a Southern European hotel chain, which, for example, their own front office managers, they would dedicate 5 to 6 hours every day of these mundane tasks, such as creating schedules, replying on common emails, right? 95% of these emails are about what time is your breakfast, what time is checkout, how much is breakfast, can we park our car, and whatnot, right? And this applies to to really the frontline staff as well. These kind of mundane processes that we think we can solve with artificial intelligence. There are specific tools available to address these. So really improving and alleviating the staff from those mundane tasks is something that we've seen a lot, and there's also really a lot of opportunity in.
Do you think, or are you seeing Are you seeing them actually adopting your recommendations, or are they just checking a box and moving on? Is it hard for them to
Well, first,
go ahead? Yeah, I mean, what's that look like?
yeah, I mean, first when we present these recommendations, sometimes there's a lot to grasp, right? Sometimes we come in with 15, 20, 25 recommendations. It really depends on the property and the hotel group, and also the state of the technology stack that they currently have. Because if there's a very old technology stack with not a lot of, or basic, a lot of integration possibilities, then of course there's going to be limited possibilities, so to say, to integrate the best-in-class technology that is available right at the market, right? But if your foundational level, let's say you have a property management system that is fairly new, that is open to integrations, if you get it right from the start and get it right from the foundational system, so to say, your RMS, your PMS, your POS, and those systems should be all best in class. And that's what really it really depends on that. I think the foundational systems on it really depends on if there's a possibility to integrate the best in class AI tools, so to say.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, yes, we've seen a lot of these tools being implemented, and it can happen fairly quickly, right? For example, one of the tools that I mentioned is creating schedules, right? There's not a lot of you don't have to throw your entire technology stack around in order to integrate an AI tool that creates schedules, right, for your front of house. So it's these kind of I guess small tools, not overhauling tools that will disrupt your entire tech stack, that can really make a difference. Yeah.
Well, what I like about, so I've seen a couple of your findings after these assessments and these reports that you provide. What I really liked about it was you help prioritize based on need and what you just outlined. I mean, that's, to me, that's really helpful, because you go at somebody with 25, well, here's 25 areas you could address today. Yeah, but I'm not gonna. Where do I start? So that's good. Talk to us about that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is and this is super important for particularly the management, right? Because we can provide each department, let's say F&B, rooms, sales and marketing, and whatnot, every department with 5 or 6 recommendations. But at the end of the day, who's going to decide to implement this? That's the GM, right? The GM and ownership, depending on your ownership structure, and maybe your franchise structure as well. So point being is that you should really weigh off the importance of what comes first, right? So do I want to, and also the investment, right? What is my biggest operational need, and where AI can potentially bring the most impact? So usually we break it down per department. Okay, these are recommendations for F&B and rooms and so on. And then we also provide the executive leadership, such as the GM, a prioritization list of number 1 being the most impactful, and also the most feasible, so to say, within your operation, right? And then all the way down to the last number 25 or 15, again depending on the tech stack. We also provide the reasoning why it is the last one. For example, let's say you already have a very efficient way of responding to reviews, right? All your reviews are being answered. There's really already a system in place where it's not automated, but already the staff answers within 24 hours the reviews. There are some kind of analytics available, right? There's some action being taken. Maybe it's delegated to certain departments if there is a certain department mentioned in a review. However, there's a small part missing, which is automation, or to make it easier for staff to respond to these reviews. So what we're trying to say is that, look, your system is already great. What you could do, could plug in an AI tool that can make it even faster, that it can make it even smarter, can delegate it more effectively. But you're already doing great. So that's why maybe it's placed on a lower scale, on the lower end of the list than for example a chatbot that could be integrated into your website that can provide you revenue generating opportunities. So that's how we go about that, so to say.
What's the, how do I say this, difficulty of implementation? Does that play in the role of prioritization? And I mean, are most of these applications that you're recommending easy to implement, or it just varies?
It varies, and it really depends on also the attitude to technology. And the last hotel group in Central America also mentioned, for example, and this was not particularly focused on artificial intelligence, but it was more on the overall technology stack, is that there is no particular budget for IT. Right, so whenever IT wants something, okay, we'll consider it at an ad hoc fashion, right? Which works for a lot of properties, but for some properties, sorry. But the majority of hotels that we encounter, they have a specific budget that they need to work with that year, which usually gets established in Q3, beginning Q4. So that's already quite a busy period. So it's quite difficult to determine that for the next year. And once you set a budget, you're stuck with it, right? So it really depends on the budget, of course. But I guess what we always try to do is provide some sort of urgency or opportunity to increase revenues, to increase cross-selling, to increase upselling, right? Provide a clear sense of an ROI, right? A lot of assessments what we do for the hotels, they say, look, don't focus on budget, don't worry about the cost. We just want to have the best and the best technology that is available, and then on our end we'll focus on an ROI. We'll focus on what vendor to select. So that's what we also do. We can provide a no vendor, or we provide assessments with a no vendor identification, and we provide assessments with a vendor identification, so to say. And there's reasons for both to consider, which I just described. So that's how we go about it usually.
All right. Before we get into your list of apps people don't know about, let me remind the audience you can ask questions. You got a question for Vincent or me? Shoot it our way.
The technology, right? The AI vendor, so to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I guess one of the main reasons why people are joining today. So one of the tools that I've been recommending to a lot of hoteliers is called Viff.ai, which is VIFF.ai, which is a tool that helps hotels to respond to reviews in an automated fashion, right? Faster, and also very importantly in the tone of the brand, right? The tone of voice. So it learns on what tone you currently use, what tone it provides you recommendations. Okay, what do I want to respond to a certain guest with, a negative review or a positive review. It takes all these kind of data points, and it provides you the operation to respond to these reviews in a way faster, way more effective way, right? Again, we've been having these assessments. We've been conducting these assessments with a lot of operational staff that spend a lot of time every day responding to reviews, and often they also neglect to respond to positive reviews, which is in our opinion a waste, because it can be very beneficial for your brand to do so, right?
Yeah.
And these kind of tools they enable you to do so.
Yeah. I know you've got a couple more to share, but let's get into some of these questions that just popped in here.
Yeah.
Does tech adoption with staff on ground play a role? How do you evaluate that?
Does tech adoption with staff on ground play a role? Yeah, of course. There are certain brands and certain regions in the world where tech adoption is, I guess, more difficult, right? Especially on property level at the front line. So it also really depends on the brand strategy on how to use and implement technology on a day-to-day basis, right? And how well you're currently using your systems. There's a lot of hotels that are not currently using their current tech stack, their current investment to the fullest extent. They're not using all of the functionalities in their PMS system, in their RMS system. So we always recommend as well to fully invest in your current system as well. And as a side, of course, consider new technologies such as artificial intelligence. But going back to the beginning of this conversation, it's really vital to understand what your current functionalities are and if you're exploiting those systems to the fullest extent. Yeah.
So before we move on from guest review app that you suggested, the wonderful and beautiful Adele Gutman-Mill has a point that I think you should address, because I think this is an important perspective for hoteliers and all of us really to understand when it comes to AI. But she says you can use automation to respond to 5-star reviews, but for reviews that have critical insights that require action and leadership, there must be humans giving it personal attention. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I think it's a very good point, actually, Adele, and thank you for asking the question. It's something that has been brought up almost in every assessment. That's not almost in every assessment, right? One of the opening statements of a GM or an IT director, usually the GM, saying, "Okay, we don't want to lose the human touch," right? And that you read that everywhere and you hear it on the floor, and I fully agree with that. I think my first argument towards that, in regards to that, is that by alleviating these mundane tasks, such as the reviews writing, the answering the emails, all those credit card checks and whatnot, you empower the staff to reinforce that human connection. You alleviate them with the operational burden, so to say, and you empower them and enable them to really focus on the guest experience face to face, right? Something that they've been hired to do so. And to respond to particularly that question about, or more detailed, about the automation with AI reviews, the tools that I'm suggesting to use, such as Viv, and there's a couple tools on the market like Viv, doesn't necessarily automatically respond. It drafts a response for you, for the human, and then it can say it accepts, it rejects, or you want to modify it. And again, it learns on your brand of voice, right? So it learns on all these data sets, and you can then adjust it accordingly. So if you'd like to make it personalized, such as refer something that happened in their stay, or refer something that is currently happening on the ground, such as, I don't know, a renovation or whatsoever, that an AI can't possibly know, right? To our understanding, then you can always modify that and give it that personal touch, for sure. But it's definitely
that's cool. Yeah. Your next AI-enabled app you've been recommending?
Yeah. So there's also an app tool called Email Tree, which is kind of in the same I guess cluster of operational burden. Email Tree. Again, I will share all these links in the comments after this live session. If it's hard to differentiate from my Dutch accent. Email Tree, it provides the operational staff in, again, drafting emails, such as answering emails, such as do you guys have parking? What time is breakfast? What is the cost? Can I do an early check-in? That kind of stuff. Again, it's the same cluster of FIF, which alleviates the operational staff of its burden and really empowers them to reinforce the human connection. Yeah, and that guest experience.
I lost your audio there for a second.
Oh, okay. Is this good again?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. Where did you lose me? Where did you lose me?
I don't know. Go back a few words. It's automating the responses, the email responses.
Oh, yeah. So indeed, email tree, the tool that really automates responses or draft. Automating is perhaps not the right word. It's really creating drafts for you as a responder to those emails. So, for example, this can be very helpful for reservation agents, for front desk managers, supervisors that answer emails that come in every day, right? So it can potentially bring it down to, for example, what we've seen, front office managers spending several hours each day responding to emails, either from internal guests or outside guests. That can bring it down from a couple of hours, like 4 or 5 hours, what we've seen in the past each day, to maybe 30 minutes, right? In a lot of the hotels, they have what we've seen, manual ways of doing this. So a common practice is to grab an Excel sheet and have maybe 20 different scenarios on each situation, and then copy paste these responses in the email. But you can understand that it's not not personalized. It's not efficient. You also can't have a centralized database or a centralized brand of a tone of voice, so to say, right?
Yeah.
So with these kinds of tools, you can really streamline your email management.
Yeah. So Adele tells me that they did hear you, so it's me.
Oh, okay.
It's not you, it's me.
I don't know. You're all the way in. You're in Texas, right? I'm all the way in Spain, so that might be why.
All right, last app.
Yeah, being pulled up. It's actually a tool that I talked about in the first session as well, but I couldn't forgive myself if I didn't mention it again today, which is Zira, Zira, and more specifically, their functionalities to create schedules. I talked about this, throughout this conversation about creating schedules. Again, this is a very operational heavy task for a lot of operational managers, and I can tell because I did it before. I did it with Waldorf Astoria when back in the day when I worked in F&B on the floor. You look at the weather. You look at groups coming in, you look at all the preferences of all the employees with full-time contracts, part-time contracts. Back in Holland, 0-hour contracts, so on-call contracts, seasonal workers. People don't want to work weekends. They don't want to work evenings. They have 2 jobs, especially in the US. So you have all these different preferences that as a human, you just can't process effectively or efficiently. You can do it, but account for a lot of human errors and account for a lot of hours spending each week on creating these schedules. Now, imagine a tool like Zara creating an opportunity for these managers to include all these preferences and all these KPIs that you need to create a schedule in hospitality operations, and just spit it out for you in a matter of a couple of minutes, right? Instead of doing this manually. So there's a couple of benefits, of course, that I just expressed, but also, again, it comes back to empowering those operational staff members in creating a wonderful experience for your guests instead of sitting in the back office and doing something that they didn't want to join hospitality for, right, in the first place. They really want to connect with the guests. I mean, that's after all why we're in this. In the hospitality industry. I mean, 99% of people are, right? So they want to be empowered to do so. I think that's my third tool and final tool. Again, I'll put it in the comments afterwards as well, the specific links.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Thanks for spending time with me, Vincent. I know you're busy, and it was good to hear about the engagements that you've been involved in. And then I know everyone appreciated those 3 apps. And again, Vincent will put those in the comments after the event. And I want to thank everybody for joining us.
Thanks for hosting, Jason. Thanks for the invite again. And thanks to everybody following us. Yeah,
you bet.
Cheers.